So welcome to our session with Jamie Della. Today, we are so lucky that Jamie has driven all the way from Mammoth Lake, which is quite a trek, to come here and to be part of Cosmogenetrix. She is an ordained priestess of this temple. She's a healer. She's a Chicana witch, and she's a mentor. She's the author of 10 books, and I was around for the first one. And I'm still standing here loving everything you do. The Book of Spells, The Magic of Witchcraft, as well as her recent release, A Box of Magic, a guided journey to crafting a magical life through witchcraft, ritual, herbalism, and spellcrafting. And that is the book that she wrote based on her work with her beloved mentor, Connie. She writes 2 blogs, at least. Writing the Magic and Homesteading the Hollows, and she's just launched a Substack, which is the
Writing the
Magic Substack. So you can now subscribe to her Substack, which is fantastic. I know because I read all those entries a long time ago. And when I was working on her website, she writes also for the Witchcraft as Wellness zine. She writes for the seasonal magical wellness kits that are offered by Oshala Farm, which is just right up here in Applegate Valley in Oregon. That's with Elise. She brings healing to the forefront of her magic. She's a Reiki massage therapist, a soul collage facilitator, and a teacher of creativity and magical workshops. She offers rituals, seasonal insight, events, and class announcements, and inspiration to dance with your inner witch in her free newsletter that comes out on the new and full moons. And let me tell you, out on the new and full moons like clockwork. Talk about Capricorn energy. This woman is on time. When I have forgotten to write my newsletter and hers comes, I'm like, oh, right, I have to get that. You can subscribe and you can get to her Substack. You can get to everything through jamiedella.com. You can find her on Facebook. She's also on Instagram. And today she is bringing us something so fun. It is the cosmic influences of the Circumpolar Constellations. Welcome, Jamie Della.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I joined, well, join is the right word because it feels like something like joining a family. I joined the Mount Shasta sisterhood of the Goddess Temple right when they moved up to the mountains, and it was empty nest and menopause and isolation, and I'm like, I need sisters. And you were just launching it, and I was so excited to be part of it, and I'm so excited to be here. This is the first time I've taught this workshop. You would think my moon would be a fire moon for how often I change things up, but it's not. But in any case, I am teaching this new class because I live in a dark sky environment. So dark sky environments are those that there's not many cities or any cities anywhere nearby. And so when you look up, you see everything that the sky has to offer. And so I got a hot tub when my first book got a good royalty check, honestly. Did not invest that in myself in water. And so that hot tub sits right in the north. And so from my corner, I'm looking straight up at Polaris. So every night I'm in that hot tub, and every night I'm watching the story of these stars go around, so I get to see how they rise and how they are in relationship to each other. And because of this, I came up with this idea of this workshop, just sitting there and watching. So I am so in awe of those who can sit and do all the research of our many workshops that we've had and really dive into that. I'm far more experiential in what I do. And so for me, this is a concept. This isn't proven by anyone. This is the first time that I know it's been talked about. So this is something that I invite you to consider as a possible influence to our lives. So I begin with depth psychology, and someone here went to Pacifica University. Who was it? Someone was talking about that university, but in any case, they teach depth psychology. And depth psychology is, I'm going to read it from you because It's easier that way and it's smarter, so I don't have to mess up. So depth psychology through the study of dreams, images, symptoms, slips of the tongue, spontaneous humor, meaningful coincidences, as well as interpersonal engagement. Depth psychologists attempt to understand the language of the dynamics of the unconscious as it manifests in our world. So it sounds a lot like witchcraft. But, but in any case, depth psychology approaches to the psychological suffering that we might have experienced and helps individuals become aware of what is cast out from our unconscious to our conscious. So it is a study of all these symbols. It is also a study of the stories and the mythology that is present in our lives. And why are we interested in stories? Stories help us make sense of things. Stories help us make an emotional connection. Stories also help us anchor the memory of an experience. And so these constellations that are up in the sky are stories. There are stories that are influencing us. So I promised a quiz. It's not much of a quiz, but it's a bit of a quiz. So these are going to be the 5. There's 5 constellations. There's really 6, but I didn't really see the last one until like after I already said it in. I'm like, the giraffe, it's barely there. It's barely there. So I'm going to show each of the constellations that are around so we can see, and I want you to look at these images, or I invite you to look at these images, and you might be able to recognize them. I go, oh, I know what that one is. That one is like my favorite, or I never see that one, but just give yourself an opportunity to be surprised, to have a little serendipity of like, what could that mean? And what would I might look at that constellation for the first time. So here's this one. And I'm just gonna pass them around in case people want to have a better look at them all. And this one, right? I might know what each of these are. And then this one. This one. So this is, yeah, exactly. So I'm showing you these to see which of these are like most interesting to you. The one you're kind of the most drawn to, perhaps, the one that might intrigue you the most, right? There you go. So let me get my place here. So the major constellations that circumnavigate Polaris, the North Star, are Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, Draco, Cassiopeia, and Cepheus. Now there is one Camelopardus. Did I say it wrong? Oh, Camelopardus is the giraffe, but it's very, very faint. And so we're going to say we see you, giraffe, but we're not going to talk about you. So I want to go through each of these constellations because I believe that it's very interesting, these particular constellations that go around the sky. So if you think about it and you think about our stories and the stories that are the most important to us in our lives, whether or not we watch them in movies or the stories that play out in our lives, we have the child, the mother, the queen, the king, and the dragon. And I propose that these stories, that these constellations that circumpolar navigate that North Star are the ones that are guiding our stories that are the most important. And so I'm going to give some, I'm going to like stretch this out, see what you all think about this. So the child. The child represents that the untapped potential. So that it is the archetype and is the manifestation of potential future that is yet to be realized, either within each of us as individuals or within our community and collective setting as demonstrated in our shared worlds. Our inner child possesses qualities of innocence, impulsiveness, spontaneity, creativity, as well as those of dependence, naivety, ignorance, stubbornness, and or being carefree. So I want you to all take a moment to think of your child self. and something that you did that was either creative or playful. So for example, I thought the Crayola box of crayons was really cool, and I wanted to name colors. So I would look up at the sky and say, that's elephant blue. You know, I was gonna like submit to all my Crayola colors to Crayola and let them know that there could be more. I like to do drip, I like to build drip castles. What did you like? You're the one.
Skipping across creeks.
Skipping across creeks. Anybody else? What other playful or creative things that represents a child for you? Can you?
Mud pies.
Mud pies.
I like to play teacher.
Play teacher. Exactly. Digging holes. And I'm sorry, what did you say?
Climbing trees.
Climbing trees. So these are all when we look up at the Little Dipper, when we're looking at Ursa Minor, this is this opportunity for us to always remember that inner child. And isn't that what a lot of our work is all about? Of healing, is healing the inner child. So in our world, maybe in another world, maybe if other constellations were circling the North Star, we would say it meant something else. But right now, we know that our inner child is very important. It is that foundation at which we stand. And then, of course, the next would have to be the mother. So that's, did we get them all back? Okay, so Ursa Minor.
Okay.
Yeah, Ursa Minor, right? Goes up, boop, 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 all around. And then,
That one made me think about second star to the right and straight on.
yes,
That's all about that.
yes,
The song never like.
yes. And who's this? Ursa Major. A few more stars than we're used to seeing. A few more stars. And so many cultures have called her the bear. Right? It's not, it's,
There, yeah.
yes, you can see at least it this way. Like when you just see the cup, you're like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as this, you can see that bear. And the mother is a very important person in our lives. Very important. I've heard it say, and that the mother influences us, like if we had everybody in the planet that we've ever met. So you have all your friends, your families, your coaches, mentors, teachers, whatever. You've had all these different people's fathers, uncles, brothers, grandfathers. All of those, 60% the mother has influence, and the other people take up the 40%. And if you think of our relationships with our mother and how impactful that is, that's something to really consider about the mother's influence. So the mother represents the first symbol of the great goddess and the divine feminine. In Greek mythology, Ursa Major represents Callisto, a beautiful nymph and huntress with whom Zeus, the god of the sky, fell in love. Zeus's father, Callisto's son, Arcas, and out of jealousy, Hera, Zeus's wife, turned Callisto into a bear, forcing her to spend the rest of her life roaming the woods. Years later, Callisto's son, Arcas, became a great hunter himself, and one day he encountered a bear in the woods and took chase, not knowing the true identity that this bear was his mother. Zeus stopped Arcas just before he threw his spear to kill her, and in order to protect her, Zeus hoisted Callisto into the sky by her tail, stretching it to its abnormal length. In some Native American cultures, the 3 stars in Ursa Major's tail represent the 3 hunters pursuing a bear. The hunt lasts from spring to autumn until the hunters finally pierce the bear with their arrows. The constellation drops much closer to the horizon in the fall, and the blood from the wounded bear spills onto the earth, changing the colors of the leaves. When the Big Dipper is upright, the Little Dipper is upside down. Because their handles extend in opposite direction, it's sometimes associated with the yin and yang. And this orientation, of course, symbolizes balance. It also embodies the inextricable link between mother and child. The mother is a very essential figure of attachment in the child's life from the beginning. And our physical and emotional growth is dependent upon that bond. And so here we go. Let's see, lack of emotional awareness or difficulty forming and maintaining relationships is a mother wound manifestation. Inability to self-soothe, holding an expectation that romantic partners will provide more than a fair share of their household labor or emotional support. Trust issues or difficulty showing up vulnerability in the way but also it's important to remember that the way our parents speak to us becomes our self-talk. And so that's something to recognize, that sometimes that gets in there and we need to pluck it out. And we need to do the work. And then it's also, as we were talking about earlier, the mother, though, is not responsible for you for your entire life. So recognizing that that was a moment in time and it was an influence, that therefore now this is your garden that you need to be tending. So if anyone remembers this one, children learn what they live. If a child lives with criticism, he learns to condemn. If a child lives with hostility, she learns to fight. If a child lives with ridicule, he learns to be shy. If a child lives with shame, she learns to feel guilty. If a child lives with tolerance, he learns to be patient. If a child lives with encouragement, I'm going to do this now, they learn confidence. If a child lives with praise, they learn to appreciate. If a child lives with fairness, they learn justice. If a child lives with security, they learn to have faith. If a child lives with approval, they learn to like themselves. If a child lives with acceptance and friendship, they learn to find love in the world. Now, I myself had a very difficult relationship with my mother. And I went to, so this book right here, this is a box of magic. This is at the beginning of the pandemic, my Wiccan mentor's daughter reached out to me and asked me if I would like to have her mother's entire magical collection. So I said, yes, I would take that. And so it's about 70 years worth of magical study and a lot of very intricate information. And it gave me the opportunity, I chose to put it together in such a way that I would go back to sitting at the knee of my mentor, like I did when I was in my 30s, and now she is she was my age now, my mid-50s, and remember what it was like to have a teacher. And this was also inspired by, there was a online Instagram, there was this quiz about where did you learn magic, and all these different, surveys and different things, but like one of them was, where did you learn magic? And they had an eighth, like a, multiple choice. It was books, symposiums such as this, online, but they didn't have teacher and they didn't have mentor. And I called them out because I said, this is an oral tradition for the most part. For you youngins, you got to learn something here. There's more than that. But sometimes when we look at the goddess and we look at this and the mother wound and this kind of story that might live in our life, live around the polar, live around our North Star, that we get stuck there. And I got stuck in my early 30s, but I knew that I didn't want to go through the rest of my life claiming that my mother was the author of my every misfortune. But I was so confused because I love the goddess. So how could I have mommy issues? Like, it was too incongruous for me. So I'm going to read this little section of when I went to my mentor to ask that question. How can I say I love the great mother if I haven't figured out how to love my mother, or my mothering myself, my own self-care, my relationship, my moon relationship to myself? So I said to her, how can I say that I worship the goddess and still have mommy issues? I asked the candle's flame, not able to pick up my eyes and look at my mentor at the mention of my darkest secret. It doesn't always have to be this way, she said. Now just breathe. Once there was a family of women, says Connie, who made an extraordinary pot roast. The grandmother and mother had always cut off both ends, rubbed the herbs and spices, and placed the meat in the center rack. One day, the youngest daughter asked her grandmother why they cut off the ends of the roast, to which the old woman replied, back in the day, we had to cut the hunk of roast to make it fit in the pan. Sometimes we repeat patterns without knowing why we do them. Cycles of mother issues, cycles of parenting issues that we repeat, but we have the opportunity to stop them. We find the methodology and tradition. We follow the methodology and tradition because that is how it has always been done. We repeat stories because they have become familiar. You have to get out of the rut of seeing your mother in the same light as you did when you were young. She will always be the little mother, trying to her best to channel the love and the great wisdom of the great mother. Our mothers are little mothers. We are little mothers. She is the great mother from whom we love from. She gives us the love that we love with. But we are doing our best to be like her. And yet we hold sometimes ourselves accountable, and our mothers particularly, to being her. And I went to interrupt, but I said, sheltering in your shadow will turn cold and lonely, Jamie. My mentor said to me, you have prepared for this. Stare into the flame and repeat your matriarchal lineage as far as you can go. Has anyone ever done this? I am Jamie, daughter of Kathy, daughter of Della, daughter of Alice, daughter of Manuela, daughter of Maria Espirito Santos Peralta, daughter of Maria Nieves, daughter of Viviana. I can go on to 1700, but I don't have them all memorized. This is that image. Have you ever stood there with a mirror that have in the bathroom that has like the medicine doors that have the mirror? And if you hold it in such a way you can see your reflection back, that's your mother line. That's your father line. That's your whichever line you choose to look at back. They're all there supporting you. So what we did is my mother and I did a bury the hatchet ritual. And in our bury the hatchet ritual, we had a paper for writing, and you can always just take a picture of this, but this is Lisa's book now. We literally had a pen and pencil, a hatchet, a small plot of land, a shovel, sticks, candle. And what we did is we held on to each other's hands and said why we loved each other first. We began with why we loved each other. And then, like I'm saying, at this point, I'm in my early 30s. I'm getting out of the Saturn's return. I am not taking this crap with me. You know, my mom is in her mid 50s, probably going through menopause, going, I'm not taking this crap with me. And so, and then we actually took turns after we shared what we loved about each other. We took turns sharing how we felt betrayed by each other, hurt by each other. And you didn't get to say, well, the reason I did that, I was on my period, it wasn't my fault, you know, or whatever it is. Like you just listened, and we just held on to each other. And then we wrote each other these stories about what we would like the relationship to look like. So we burned the papers of that was painful, and we buried that in, and then we created a corn dolly to represent the relationship that we wanted to have moving forward. What's interesting is in the night sky, the mother is exactly opposite of Cassiopeia. And if you've ever, one of the things, the traditions that I was believed when I was, have always been in circle, is the person that's right across from you is the one who's telling you, has a story to tell you, has something to teach you. And so if you look at that night sky and you have the mother, the nurturing energy right across from the queen, who, as someone earlier was saying, that hubris is the most, one of the biggest sins. And her hubris, Cassiopeia's hubris, was to say she was more beautiful. She was the most beautiful. And I'm going to read her story because there's something I want to say about that. So, in the night, the Ursa Major is opposite Cassiopeia, the queen of Ethiopia. Is that how you say it? Okay. Which is south of Egypt, who boasted that her unparalleled beauty even claimed to surpass the Nereids, the sea nymphs of exquisite beauty. And enraged, Poseidon, the god of the sea, sent a sea monster to ravage Ethiopia. And to save their kingdom, Cassiopeia and her husband, King Cepheus, consulted an oracle who told them that the only way to appease Poseidon was to sacrifice their daughter Andromeda to the monster. Andromeda was chained to a rock by the sea and left to be eaten by Cetus. She was later saved by Perseus. But Cassiopeia often symbolizes vanity, royalty, power, and authority, but also leadership and assertiveness. A strong ass woman. A strong woman who is something to teach the nurturing woman, just as the nurturing woman has something to teach the assertive woman. And isn't that so much of what we're seeing in our world right now? So much of us standing up for the goddess within. And people saying, no, 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 your place is over here. It's this little small corner of the world. And we're like, no, it's not. We take up this whole big part of the sky. Actually, we got two. We got the mother and the queen. And of course, her husband, Cepheus, represents like the emperor, the light, the divine masculine, right action, stepping forward with justice, stepping forward with courage. And the king, what does the king normally do? He slays the dragon. The dragon has two interpretations, right? One in the west and one in the east. So the dragon in the west represents our shadow side. Our shadow side could be stories that we tell ourselves, like, you know, I'm a horrible person because someone treated you bad and you're allowing their treatment to define who you are. That needs to be let go. So, or perhaps it's because, you know, you were, something horrible happened to you. And so you decided that you don't have value. That's a story that needs to be let go of. So in most cultures, people refer to Draco in some version of, let's see, some version of the, here's the king. Sorry, here's the king. Let me show you him again. Here's the king. Turning around.
It's like a puppy.
Looks like-
Oh, I was thinking of a puppy, but okay.
And then this is Cassiopeia. Sits on her throne. It's an M or a W, depending on how it moves around the sky. And this is our Draco. This is our dragon.
Yeah.
So what I find is the king, if the queen represents the mystery in the dark, then the king represents the light, and it is our light that will pierce that shadow. It is our light, but also in the east, the dragon is good fortune. So it is our light that receives our good fortune. That often will say, oh, well, you know, it's not really a gift. It's not really a big deal that I could ride horses. It's easy to me. Or write books or do psychic readings. But our gifts, our talents, they're one and the same. And we're given those gifts to share with them. So Draco is the year of the dragon, from the year of the dragon. And I believe one of the reasons, I asked a friend of mine, one of the reasons she believes that the dragon is considered good luck and the most magical of all, the most good fortune. It's the only mythical creature of all the Chinese zodiac. So it has the most power because it comes from magic. So when we use that light to embrace our shadow, to embrace our gifts, and that Draco, he's around the child. It's protecting our inner child. And the tail almost gets around the North Star. So if we look at our shadow, if we embrace those parts of ourselves, love every part of ourselves, we will find our true north. So we're just right there. I was like watching the time, like
It's perfect. What a perfect cosmic journey. Jamie, Della. Thank you, thank you.
yeah.
Oh, wow. And you know what? With everything we did today, we got back on time. How about that? Aren't we magical? All right, so we're gonna just take 13 minutes and then, yes, powerful messages. And Enodia loves this book. Amen, sister. Hashtag goals. Lots of love for you in the comments, Jamie. And we will be back in 13 minutes for a dancing ritual. So for those who are on my little facilities crew, maybe we can move these chairs. And we're gonna dance in this space. And y'all are gonna dance at home. Don't think you're getting out of it. We're gonna have you dancing too.
Choose a way to work.